Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, and we're recording a podcast, which we do every week because it's tradition.
Lovely performance there of that song. I'm sure we'll have a lot more singing in this premiere of our season on the films of 1971. As always, we begin with the box office champion of the year. And somehow the number one movie of 1971 was a 3-hour musical. It's Fiddler on the Roof.
I mean, Josh, let me jump in. Could Wicked have been the number one movie last year? Yes. So not just a 3-hour musical, a 3-hour musical about Eastern European Jews who are being displaced. Let's go really, really deep. None of this makes any sense. That's the beauty of it.
Right. I mean, and to be fair, this didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, this was, like Wicked, an adaptation of an incredibly popular Broadway musical that had been running for years and had been awarded and had sold millions of tickets. So, I mean, this was an existing, this is in a way similar to modern box office successes because it's IP. It's a proven popular property that is being adapted into film with some of the people who appeared in the Broadway version. And even though our star, Topol, or Chaim Topol, the Israeli actor, was not the main actor known for the Broadway version, had appeared in the play in London and was associated with it as well. So it is a known quantity.
Right. And for all you Goyish Apunims out there, you non-Jew faces, Josh really nailed the Cha in Chaim.
Thank you. Yeah, those very brief years of Hebrew school really paid off for me. So, I mean, the musical had premiered in 1964, and even before then, the musical itself was adapted from something popular, from stories by Sholem Aleichem, who is a well-known Yiddish writer. So there's a long history of this being a popular material. I think the difference, as you're kind of pointing out, Jason, is especially, starting with the play and then also with the movie, is that this reached a huge audience beyond people who were Jewish or even had any knowledge or experience with Jewish culture. Which is
great, because a great piece of art is a great piece of art. It doesn't really matter what it is. Josh, when you were in Hebrew school, did you ever sing Havenu Shalom Aleichem?
I don't think I know that one.
Shalom Aleichem. Havenu Shalom Aleichem. Havenu Shalom Aleichem.
Does it have any words? Other words?
Havenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.
That was like one of my favorite songs actually back then. So yeah. I'm with you. But we had different words. We had Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu is how it was for us. Maybe it's
Maybe you're right, and I just kind of mashed them together.
Yeah, mixed matching Jewish little ditties. Yeah.
Little Jewish ditty about Shalom Aleichem.
I feel like Hebrew school was less about singing and more about like learning vocabulary.
I think Josh must have gone to like a traditional one. No, Dave, you're wrong. I looked it up. Havenu Shalom Aleichem is a Hebrew folk song, which translates to "We have brought peace upon you and brought peace to you." So
it must be some kind of reform thing, because it was definitely Shalom Aleinu. It was my favorite Hebrew school song. It was a banger.
So that was the point I was getting to. Dave and I went to Workman's Circle, which was super reformed, like hippie Jewish school, and I think Dave probably went to a reformed. And Josh, you sound like you went to a more traditional one.
I don't know. Whatever it was, I dropped out. I stopped going. I hated it. And no, I did not have a bar mitzvah, and I did not want to. And my mom, who is Jewish, had kind of insisted that I go, but she wasn't really all that dedicated.
Josh,
to the prospect
if you didn't have a bar mitzvah, how are we going to find a nice wife for you?
Yeah, well, I don't have that either. So I guess that did. But yeah, I was able to, I think I went for 1 or 2 years. I don't know how long you were supposed to go, but I just complained about it so much that my mom finally let me stop. And I paved the way because my younger siblings never had to go at all. So they did not have bar or bat mitzvahs either.
I did have a bar mitzvah, which was snowed out. Blizzard of the Century had to be rescheduled. But, the issue for me with the Jewish school was that mine was always Sunday morning. And it's like, oh, man, that was so rough. For me as like a kid, I wanted to stay up and watch Saturday Night Live. And, it's the weekend. Had it been like after school on a Thursday, I probably wouldn't have disliked it as much.
Yeah, I feel like I don't remember it all that well, but I feel like mine maybe was after school during the week or something. But it didn't matter. Whatever time it was, I hated it.
Yeah.
And
you're an anti-Semite.
Maybe if we had watched Fiddler on the Roof in Hebrew school, I would have enjoyed it more because it's a crowd pleaser. So it was a huge hit. Obviously, it grossed $83.3 million on its $9 million budget. Again, the number one highest grossing film of 1971, and also hugely acclaimed and awarded. It was nominated for 8 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director for Norman Jewison, Best Actor for Chaim Topol, who plays Tevye, the main character, Best Supporting Actor for Leonard Frey, who plays the tailor. And I don't know, of all the actors in the movie, I'm not sure why he was singled out.
Yeah, but that's not a knock on him. It's just it's a very one-note part, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing especially distinctive. I mean, Topol really carries the movie. I mean, Tevye is the main character, and it's really about his journey, even though it's all his daughters are getting married and they go through their own issues as they try to find happiness and love. But it's really about him accepting their choices and understanding that tradition, as you sang about, is not necessarily the be all and end all. So it is a little odd to have the one character who's one daughter's suitor and then husband get that nomination. But he was also nominated for Best Art Direction. It did win 3 Oscars for Best Scoring Adaptation, which is a category that doesn't exist anymore, Best Cinematography, and Best Sound. At the Golden Globes, it won Best Picture and Best Actor in the musical or comedy category. So since it's divided up, that's always an advantage at the Golden Globes.
In the supporting actor category, there was the other suitor who was like the reformer and, fighting against the system. And then there was the guy, Laser Wolf, who was the older widow who was trying to manage to marry Tevye's daughter. And I thought both of those, one, very good acting, obviously, but both of those had more layers. So I might have gone with one of those if I was on the Oscar committee. But as you know, me and the Oscars, we don't get along too well.
Right. I mean, and those characters are interesting, but I don't think any of these characters really have that much depth or range to them per se. I mean, it's really about Tevye. Even the daughters who, are there kind of pleading their cases and are conflicted about how are they going to be able to, live the lives they want and be with the men that they want to be with. There still isn't as much to them as characters as there is to Tevye.
Man, that guy, dude, I'm telling you, he is a deserved Oscar nominee. That was really fun to watch him because, I don't know if any of us would have seen him in anything else. We're not really haven't watched a lot of Israeli movies from the 60s. And I know he did some like American films, but that would be a revelatory performance if that was, you're watching that for the first time in 1971.
Right. And even though he was in Israeli films, even in Israel, he was far more known as a stage actor.
Yes.
So really, it's about seeing him do this on stage, and playing Tevye on stage was basically like something he did for his entire career.
Right. It's appointment like, if Topol's coming to town with the Fiddler tour, you buy a ticket for that.
Right. And I was impressed. He was only 36 years old when this movie was released. And
wow.
I mean, right. Like the way that he effectively, like I never would have guessed that. And sometimes you can watch older films and you see the old age makeup or whatever, and you can still buy into a performance, but you're aware that this is a younger actor. I would not have guessed that at all. I would have guessed that this was an actor.
And I think that might even be harder to do on stage, right? Because in screen, like you said, you have the makeup, you can be quieter because of the microphones. You don't have to project as much. So, he might have only been 36, but his back felt like 60, delivering the milk, the cheese, What I don't need to tell you.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because he was carrying the movie.
Oh, yeah, that too.
that too, yes. Tevye, the dairyman, that's his job, delivering the milk and the cheese to the people of the town of Anatevka in what would now be Ukraine, but was at the time Russia in the late 19th
and look at how well it worked out. It wasn't like they were...
Everything's great there now. Yeah, no, that's the thing. You can watch this movie, you think, good thing we solved all these problems. Nothing wrong in this region anymore.
It all worked out yet again.
So well. So this movie was, well regarded by critics. Although one of these, again, that I feel like a lot of these reviews are sort of like begrudgingly positive. And the other thing was, and we talked about this, I think, a couple times in our 1941 season, that this was a play that was still at like the height of its popularity, just like when they made the movie of like the Philadelphia Story. So many of these critics are comparing it to the play, which they themselves have seen very recently.
And probably starring Zero Mostel.
Yeah, exactly. Who was the main actor on Broadway. So Roger Ebert said, I suppose Fiddler on the Roof is just the movie that lovers of the stage play were waiting for. And since Fiddler is the most popular stage musical in history, that's something, all right. But would it be heresy on my part to suggest that Fiddler isn't much as a musical, and that director Norman Jewison has made as good a film as can be made from a story that is quite simply boring? Fiddler on the Roof has been around a long time, has become an institution, and has added some good songs to our memories. But in the process, it's become so polished, so packaged, so distanced from the real feelings that inspired the original stories of Sholem Aleichem that it's become just another pleasant product of American entertainment industrialism.
I mean, in a way that's somewhat interesting. You could see how much classism means even in this tiny village, the rich versus the poor, right? That type of thing and everything. Laser Wolf, we got to marry the butcher because he's got money, right? But I don't know. I mean, that what he's saying, I think, is like a personal, like, hey, I don't love the play, but if you're going to make the play into a movie, you can't do much better than this. I like the play. I think the movie's pretty damn good, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what he's saying, though. I've never seen this on stage, and I certainly haven't read the original Sholem Aleichem stories. I know, just kind of skimming on Wikipedia, that they have darker endings, at least, than Tevye's sort of journey has a darker ending than the film gives him. And I can see how this is a smoothed out version. And you could argue that one of the reasons that it was able to reach such a wide audience is that it does kind of smooth out the edges of the Judaism, of the story of what these people struggled through. And, it turns it into something crowd pleasing. And we do get the displacement and we do get the pogroms. But for 95% of the movie or whatever, it's a story about a guy trying to get his daughters married, which is, a more upbeat and accessible.
Yeah, I have seen it on Broadway. And there's definitely a bigger focus on the displacement and, the haranguing of Jews and everything that comes along with that. So choices were made, and this is a good adaptation of the play. I've said that already. So
right. Well, I mean, yeah, and you having seen it would know that better certainly than I would, but maybe not better than Vincent Canby in the New York Times.
That's a professional transition, Dave. Transition.
He said, to call the movie an epic is really to define what's wrong with it, which is to mistake Sholem Aleichem for Leo Tolstoy, and to substitute for the necessarily limited physical resources of the stage, the vast physical resources of the screen. In literalizing the show, in making a big ethnic thing out of it in real landscapes and real houses, Norman Jewison, the director, and Joseph Stein, who adapted his stage book to the screen, have effectively overwhelmed not only Aleichem, but the best things about the stage production. These include Jerome Robbins' breathtaking choreography, which is mostly seen on the screen in bits and pieces, either from the neck up or from the knees down, and the lovely Sheldon Harnick and Jerry Bock score, which is strong as Broadway scores go, but which was never designed to meet the grand operatic requirements of a literal exodus.
Well, I mean, it's a different form, so you have to make adjustments. I was surprised of the commentary on the dancing. I thought there were some really great dance sequences in there, especially the scene where they're celebrating the marriage, and they have they're dancing the hora, and then certain Jewish men have the candle on their head and they're balancing. I thought that was really, really unique. And, I mean, look, I say it almost every episode. I love a good use of environment. And this felt like a real village, right? It didn't feel like a stage play. So I don't disagree with the choices that were made.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the dancing, I think this is a common complaint in virtually every movie musical, especially with those adapted from the stage, but even not. I remember seeing this about Mamma Mia. I think people said it about Wicked. And I think that's a fair complaint, and it's hard to depict that if you're not like Busby Berkeley or whatever. And there are definitely, you're right about this, the wedding scene, but there are other songs where not having seen it on stage, I don't know, is there a bigger dance element to this song or that song that they're just kind of singing to the camera here in the film?
And you're probably right. There probably is. I think, that's a fair takeaway from it. So, the other director who we've covered that was able to master putting dance on film and not getting that kind of slippage was Bob Fosse.
Right. And Fosse, of course, has a background as a choreographer. Jerome Robbins, who's mentioned there, who's a choreographer and co-directed the film of West Side Story. So if you get someone with that background, maybe they're able to put it on screen more effectively. I don't know. I agree with you, though, about the village. I think it's smart. They shot this in what is now Croatia and at the time Yugoslavia. And I think that helps if you're complaining, as Ebert was, about getting away from sort of the earthy realness of the Sholem Aleichem stories, bringing it to a real place rather than shooting it all on sound stages adds in some of the grittiness that you wouldn't have on stage.
I think so. I mean, I know they did shoot some at Pinewood in London also, and that's great for fill-in, but you believe the geography of the village, right? Like it's clear where everyone is and where they're going, and it feels very lived in. So I do, you got me thinking about the idea because Norman Jewison, we covered before, right? 67, we're doing In the Heat of the Night, and he's one of the biggest and best directors out there, and he's taking, again, I'll use the Wicked comparison, right? Taking a beloved show that's very popular. Did he have to go and make it the most populous, crowd-pleasing spectacle? If so, it worked.
Right. Obviously, it did. I mean, and I think people would have been upset if you take something like this, or Wicked, for example, or Mamma Mia, or any of these big, big, big stage productions that are hugely popular and try to essentially remove the elements that made them popular or whatever. And people always get real touchy when a Broadway show is adapted for the screen and one of the songs is cut or something, even though, I mean, I'm pretty sure they cut a song or two here. And almost always you need to do that in order to make a manageable, well-paced film. But, I think the producers in choosing Norman Jewison, I would imagine, wanted someone who could capture as much of the stage production as possible.
Fiddler on the Roof, but none of them are Jewish. Go ahead, make it.
Yeah, right. There you go. It sounds like some sort of 30 Rock joke.
Yeah.
So finally, Charles Champlin in the Los Angeles Times was very positive. He said, Fiddler on the Roof has been done not only with such artistry, but also with such evident love, devotion, integrity, and high aspiration that watching it is a kind of duplex pleasure. You are warmed by it in its own terms as a superior piece of entertainment. And if you have any abiding affection for the movies as a form, you have to be knocked out of your seat by the painstaking and inspired craftsmanship you see and hear before you. As a matter of fact, to dismiss the minor reservations as lightly and quickly as possible, the nearest Fiddler comes to getting in trouble is over its own conscientiousness and high endeavor.
Well, I mean, this all goes to those details of costume and set design. And like you said, how does this 36-year-old transform into a 60-year-old, right? So, like I said, I think the geography really helps it out too. So, yeah, I mean, there are scenes where they're like, okay, cool, it'll snow and we'll have that. And of course it doesn't snow and they have to bring in fake snow, and all that stuff works to the advantage of it. So detail is something that we love in Norman Jewison movies. Isn't that what makes Moonstruck so delightful? Those are all people that when we did that episode, I'm like, I know half these people. You know what I mean? I grew up in North Jersey in a very Italian neighborhood. I know half these people right here.
Right. And I mean, I think this movie does its best to get to you to feel that way about these characters. Although for me, again, I felt like I got that sense out of Tevye. I didn't really get that sense out of the daughters per se, that it was just a reflection of sort of his journey in accepting changes and so on. And I didn't necessarily have a problem with that, but I feel like those characters are less distinctive. And part also because Topol is such a big presence, like in a not a bad way. But I think those other actors never really assert themselves in the same way.
I think that those are all fair things to say. At the same time, it's 3 hours, right? So how much more can we explore in those minor characters? The one I think where you get it more is the daughter who marries the Christian. You know, you get a little more layering to her. So, but yeah, this is all Topol.
Right. So, Jason, you saw this on Broadway. When was that?
I did. My mom took me and my brother to see it. I was going to say probably early 2000s, starring Harvey Fierstein as Topol, who is excellent, and Rosie O'Donnell as Goldie. Because when you think of Eastern European older Jewish lady, you think Rosie O'Donnell, but she did fine, you know. So.
Yeah, I feel like those are like two huge hams playing those roles. I don't know.
I mean, Harvey Fierstein
how that
is
would
amazing.
Go.
So he's one of the best like live performers that I've seen. So I would say he stole the show, not surprisingly.
Yeah. All right. But had you seen the film version before?
Well, here's the thing. And Dave, I bet you remember this also, right? I had not seen the full movie, but we had, you know, whatever local station, WPIX in New York, was running it constantly when we were kids on the weekend. So I think I've seen many bits and pieces of it before this.
Dave, is that the case for you too?
I don't know. I do know that I definitely saw it with my parents when I was a kid, but I have not seen it since I was a kid. So like, I didn't remember any of it other than the big songs, but it's very possible because it was a movie that was everywhere as a Jewish kid growing up.
Yeah. See, I guess I missed that entirely because I never saw any of it. I mean, I'd certainly heard of it, but I never saw any pieces of it. And, you know, if they had rolled in the TV on the cart to show this in Hebrew school or Sunday school or whatever, when I was a kid, I would have watched it. But I don't recall that ever happening. So I had not seen this. My main familiarity with this was just some of the, you know, some of the songs that have become just pop culture staples. Although I'm pretty sure I knew If I Were a Rich Man from the Gwen Stefani version.
Oh, it's so bad, that version.
Awful.
I kind of don't mind it. But you know, also like Matchmaker and what is it, Sunrise, Sunset. I mean, there's a few of these that are, you know, sung often in other contexts.
My parents, you know, when we were growing up and, you know, you would achieve something, you know, that like, oh, they're getting older, they would always sing Sunrise, Sunset to bother us. But yeah, I mean, these are that's another reason why it's so popular. The music is so catchy, right? A lot of the tradition, If I Were a Rich Man, Matchmaker, those are like standards in American classic theater, I'd say, at this point in time.
Right. And I feel like that ends up being my experience a lot of times watching these classic musicals because I didn't watch them growing up for the most part. I mean, we talked about this probably when we did our episode on Sweet Charity, where it's like, oh, that's where that song's from. That's where that's from. I knew that song, or it was just around so much, but I didn't necessarily know the origin of it.
Well, I'll tell you something that
was the thing for me.
I was watching this with Scarlett. You know, she's never seen it. She's 11. She watched an hour and a half, which I think is really good for an 11-year-old. And she's like, I want to watch the rest, but I need a break, which I totally understand. But she really loved the Matchmaker song.
Yeah, it's catchy. It's catchy.
Yes,
so,
literally, find me a find, catch me a catch.
Right. Go. Yeah, exactly. So anything else you want to mention about the background of this film?
On the subject of Chaim Topol, right? Like, so we said it was Zero Mostel who was doing it on Broadway. And during his last week in the West End in London, Jewison flew out to see Topol perform. And he picked him. I mean, there were a lot of other big names that we could go over who were up for the role, but he thought like a Zero Mostel or someone like that you would be seeing that person as opposed to the character of Topol. And yeah, man, I don't know. I was knocked on my ass by that guy. He did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is immersed in that character. And I think that's a common sort of issue that you get with these. And I think that came up, we keep harping on Wicked, but when they cast like Ariana Grande in Wicked, it's like, oh, is it just going to be everyone sees pop singer Ariana Grande, or are they going to be able to buy into her as Glinda? And I think that seems to have worked out.
She did great.
She did. But I think that's a common concern for these things.
Yes. If we're going to use Wicked, right? For example, actors that I love, Peter Dinklage, Jeff Goldblum, were they as convincing in their parts? Probably not, I would say.
Well, Dinklage is a goat. I mean, he's not even really on screen, right?
I mean, I'm just saying, I feel like those could have been cast differently and it would have been less of a distraction per se.
I guess. Yeah. So we'll come back and not talk about Wicked, but rather our general thoughts on Fiddler on the Roof. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this premiere of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about box office champion Fiddler on the Roof. And I mean, as much as this is kind of crowd pleasing, I still am, as I often am in seasons when we look farther back, kind of amazed that this is the most popular movie of 1970.
I would agree with you on that, but that's not a reflection on the movie. That's just a reflection that a 3-hour Jewish musical could, take over. I would agree with you on that. And then I think with that, when I sat down to watch it, I wasn't like, sweet, 3 hours, let's go. But it whizzes by. I mean, you do need a break here and there probably, but like it really moves quickly and keeps up a nice pace for itself. So I got to commend Norman Jewison on really making sure that the film flies by.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it flew by for me. I mean, I understand why it's that long, and I've seen a few other musicals like this that, again, usually when they're adapted from Broadway, and Broadway shows tend to be much longer, these movies are long. And it has an intermission, which I remember going to see like Oklahoma. I think I saw like a triple feature for some reason in the theater of Moulin Rouge, Oklahoma, and Hello, Dolly one time. That was a long day. And I think Oklahoma
and there, that doesn't fit with those other two at all either.
It's a musical. I don't know. Some theater for some reason programmed those as a thing. And I was like, I should see these movies because I never have. And I think Oklahoma and Hello, Dolly both had intermissions. They're both really big, lengthy productions. And I did feel the length here. I think it's not a bad thing that it's that long necessarily. And I wouldn't come up with something that I would point to and say, well, they should have cut this or they should have cut that. And again, I know they cut at least one or two songs anyway.
And I think they added one or two also.
Well, yeah, and that's what they often do with these things too. But I don't know. I mean, as cool as the wedding dance is, it did go on a little.
No.
But that's like the only thing I can think of really that like in an individual scene where I thought, when is this?
Would you, I mean, to me, if there was one long one and I didn't mind it, it was Sunrise, Sunset, where we're really focused in on like all the people of the village and how they're reacting to this wedding. But again, I understand why it's there and I didn't mind it. Josh, would you rather this would be 2 hours and 40 minutes without an intermission or 3 hours with?
Well, the intermission is not 20 minutes. The intermission, I mean, at least on the version that's streaming, the intermission is like 5 minutes.
I mean, I didn't ask you to tell me where I was wrong. I asked you a question.
Oh, I thought you meant just like, would I prefer cutting the intermission? But just generally cutting it down by 20 minutes? Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with that. And the intermission doesn't mean much to you if you're not seeing it in the theater, because you can take as many intermissions as you want at home, right? And I certainly did take more than one.
When you did you put on like a fiddler in the background on your phone, like some klezmer music or anything?
No, I did not do that. I did appreciate though that there was a literal fiddler on the roof in this movie. I just assumed it would be a metaphor, and it is also a metaphor. But the movie opens and there's the fiddler and he's on the roof, like boom, right away it's happening.
Yeah, and that's is it Isaac or Itzhak Stern who is the musician who is playing all that music?
Yeah, I think it's Isaac. I think it's Isaac Stern. But yeah, and then he comes down off the roof at one point, and I mean, he's still, I don't know if he's meant to be like a real person exactly, or just sort of like a representation of the, spirit of Judaism or whatever. But he's there. He's on screen. You see him.
Yeah, it's good. I'm good with the Fiddler. So, I like
All right.
roofs that keep you, dry when it's raining outside. So those are things.
Yeah, excellent commentary
Thanks.
there. So there was not, however, a laser wolf. That was disappointing.
There was Laser Wolf, but there was not a laser wolf. So
yeah, I mean, when they first said his name, I'm like, I must be hearing it wrong. His name is not Laser Wolf, but it is.
That's a Jewish name.
Is.
So that was really fun between him and Topol, right? Because Laser Wolf is like the same age as him, to the point where, he wants to marry his oldest daughter. And they say, yes, you got money. It'll be security. It'll be good for the family. And Laser Wolf says to Tevye, you're going to be my papa. And then Tevye says, Laser Wolf, I've always wanted a son. I just figured he'd be younger than me. But those two had a really good chemistry together. And when they were fighting at the wedding and making up at the end, I really bought into that relationship the whole time.
Yeah, and I like that, because it wasn't just, you assume like, oh, they're going to marry off this daughter to some weird old guy, like he's going to be mean and abusive or something. But obviously it was better that she married the guy that she loved. But you got the sense that when he said, oh, I'll treat your daughter right, like he really meant that. And he said he was lonely and he wanted companionship, and all of that was genuine, and that he would have been nice to her even if she didn't want actually to be his wife, which was fair. So I liked that about him. It felt like it was, and I don't know how that's different from, say, the original Sholem Aleichem story. It seems like the kind of thing that maybe could have been sanded down for more accessibility. But I thought it was nice in that it made it a complex character where you could say it's better that she didn't marry him, but it wasn't just because like he was a monster.
Yeah, exactly. She they do a whole thing of like, since when does love come into marriage? When do the people get to choose who they want to marry? Because they have that old lady, the matchmaker, who's wonderful, and
Yenta.
Yeah, which a Yenta. You know what a Yenta is, Josh?
Yeah, I do. And I was wondering, it's a sort of slang term for like a busybody or whatever. And I was wondering if that originated with this movie, like the term paparazzo originated with the character from La Dolce Vita, but I guess not. I guess it was already like
Maybe
the Yiddish word, and it just happens to also be her name.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would imagine it might have popularized the use of that beyond like, just Yiddish.
But she does that thing which you see with old Jewish women and old Italian women a lot, where it's like, I'm doing you a favor. Not that I'm announcing it, but you should give me something in return because of all the work I'm doing for you. Nobody's saying anything though, right? Like they have to let you know what they're doing for them and guilt trip you in a very passive aggressive way at the same time. So
right. I feel like though she's not a very good matchmaker. I mean, if her purpose is to find you an appropriate spouse, then she's not really putting a lot of consideration into it. Not only does she try to match Seitzel with Laser Wolf, but much later in the film, she brings these two boys to match with the Tevye's youngest daughter, so I don't think ever even have lines. And she's like, oh, you're these.
When she's like, Yaakov over here, is this? And the other guy goes, I'm Yaakov. Yeah, Yaakov, or whatever.
Right, exactly. She doesn't even know which one is which. I meant the daughters don't have lines, I think, in the whole movie, even though they're there the whole time. But yeah, so she's not really doing her due diligence.
I mean, I'm going to disagree only in that the requirement of the job was different at that point in time, right? She wasn't trying to match people based on love. Like the literal.
No, but based on compatibility, based on like these people will prosper together.
Right. And that was the whole thing with the Laser Wolf thing, is that like, he's a butcher, he's got money, he's got stability, right? Like that was, as we've talked about in many movies, like Barry Lyndon, like class status meant more than anything else, right? So that was why that was. I agree with you on the two young ones, but those girls, they were like 12 anyway, right? So it's like...
Right. But the point is you lock in the match right away. And then once they're of marrying age, they've already got somebody, set to go.
Yeah. You ever experienced an arranged marriage, Josh?
I have not been married or arranged or otherwise.
You want me to set it up for you?
No, please don't. No, I would. I mean, there's people who will say that, I think there's studies that like the rate of happiness among arranged marriages is no different than the rate of happiness among
I would believe
chosen marriages.
I would believe that.
And whatever. But no, I feel like even though we've all come from a Jewish background in the US, only very, very like Orthodox Jews are using matchmaking.
Yeah, it's very rare. That said, you and I, we're both getting up there. So if you want to arrange in a marriage for us, let us know.
I'm good.
No, but I do have a friend. His name growing up was Jason. And then this is all true. He was like a hippie in high school, and he went out to like Montana to like live with the Native Americans. And one like a shaman or wise man was like, you have to discover your own culture, right? And then he became an Orthodox Jew, and now he lives on like a kibbutz in Israel, and a rabbi arranged a marriage for him, and he's still married, and they have like 5 kids together.
Is he happy?
I don't know. I think he is. It seems like it.
What's his name now?
Binyamin. That's a Jewish name for you. Yeah.
That's a very Jewish name.
Yeah.
That's true.
What also, and I've spoken about my mom, not just taking me here, but what a unique person, let's say she was. After she died, Binyamin called me from Israel and told me that he would just call my mom and they would have long talks. And I was like, that's such a random thing that like fits my mom's personality of like, hey, I'm secretly giving advice to, the kid in Israel who none of us really pay attention to or whatnot. So it's cute. Yeah. It's nice.
So that's great. She was just calling your childhood friend and talking to him in Israel?
Yeah, I think he was calling her is what it sounded like. Oh. So,
Yeah.
So, but it's cool. That's good. I'm all for it. Arranged marriages. Hey, man, take what you can get, So if I was a butcher, I think I'd have a wife by now.
If your name was Laser Wolf, people would be like, what a cool guy. Laser Wolf.
Doesn't that sound like he should be like headlining Coachella Day 3 or something?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Or he should be like a Marvel character that you find when you flip through the official handbook of the Marvel universe. You're like, remember the Laser Wolf? Yeah. He was so cool. He appeared in one issue of Captain America.
I love the idea of Laser Wolf as like an older Hasidic DJ. He's just playing like, after Flume or something like that at Coachella. Time for Laser Wolf.
Yeah, why not? Maybe he could put some, samples of Fiddler on the Roof songs.
That would be great. Did you have a favorite song? Yeah. I mean, the big 3 that I named, Tradition, Matchmaker, and If I Were a Rich Man, I think were the most popular and most well known. Do you have a favorite song?
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked Matchmaker most, I guess, maybe of those. I mean, they're all good. They're all catchy. Those are the ones I don't know that I had heard Tradition before, but Matchmaker and If I Were a Rich Man, and I think Sunrise Sunset as well. And I feel like I've heard that Gwen Stefani song so many times that I could not think of it while I was listening to If I Were a Rich Man.
I like the concept of, taking a culture and Broadwayatizing it, so to speak. So you're taking this music and you're making it so much bigger in certain regards. And I think it really worked for those songs. Dave, you have a favorite?
I like Tradition. I think that one's pretty damn good, but they're all really good. That's the thing. It's just such a great musical. So many great tracks.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, the thing that Gwen Stefani doesn't get right is the biddy, 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 biddy bum. She just loses the most, catchiest part of that. So, but.
Right. That is a good part. Yeah. I mean, that's a fun song. And that's a good showcase for him because it's not like, I mean, even though he's longing to be rich or whatever, it's more playful. He has a lot of angst, right, through this film. And a lot of his big moments are, oh my God, what can I do? My daughter wants to marry this guy. And how can I allow this? And, what are we losing? And all this stuff. And that's just a fun moment of him fantasizing about what he could have.
I think, Tevye had a sense of humor throughout. I'm the man of the house. What I say goes. I want to look at the new machine. Okay, let's go to the next thing, right?
Right.
But, we keep talking about Topol. Josh, do you agree? I was just like I said, blown away. This guy just killed the role. He was so good.
Yeah, he's very good. And again, like I've been saying, like the whole movie is Tevye.
Yeah,
really.
Right. He does carry the whole film.
if you got the wrong guy for this, the movie falls apart. It wouldn't have mattered if they had gotten more distinctive performers in those secondary roles, because everything revolves around Tevye. And yeah, I think he balances. He's got the humor. He obviously can sing. He performs those songs well. And when we get to the more serious moments, the sort of pathos of it, especially toward the end when they're all being displaced and forced out and they don't know where exactly they'll end up, you get the feeling there that he has of being torn over having to leave the village, but doing what's best for his family. And also the way I like that he didn't ultimately end up fully accepting the daughter who married the Christian, right? He could allow Seitzel to marry the tailor instead of Laser Wolf, and he could allow his middle daughter to marry the activist there, even though he was imprisoned in Siberia, because at least he was a Jew. But the non-Jew, that was the line that he would never cross.
Well, yes. At the same time, I was glad that he came to accept it to the point of like, yes, write to us when we're in America, and we're not going to pretend that you're dead.
Right. Well, that's a pretty minor adjustment.
I mean,
there,
it's better than saying she's dead to us, but I agree. I mean,
True.
It's hard to watch and be like, hey, you raised this girl, man. Like, so what? That guy's Christian, but different time, different group of people.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it would be easy, and especially from that sort of crowd pleasing perspective, that the most uplifting version of this is, he embraces all of his daughters eventually, and he respects their choices, and he loves them for who they are and what they want. But it's like, no, but he is still bound by that upbringing and the tradition, and there's a certain point at which he can't go
right. And I would say the same thing about the mom as well, and the whole, everyone in the village. Josh, tell me what you think of these names. We mentioned Zero Mostel, who we know legend, but I think I do understand why he wasn't cast in that. Like, hey, I'm watching Zero Mostel, right? And that's also partially because he was such a well-known big star. Orson Welles is Tevye, Josh?
No, absolutely. I mean, Orson Welles is, but in Orson Welles in 1971?
Oh, yes.
No way.
Oh, yes. I married my Anthony Quinn.
I guess. I mean, I don't know if Anthony Quinn can sing, but I mean, I probably haven't seen him in enough things to really have a strong opinion about
Marlon Brando, Josh?
No. I mean, again, just like Orson Welles. I mean, even by 1971, I think Brando was sort of off in his own little world there, and I don't know what that would.
So, of the names I see, I think Danny Kaye, who is classic, coming up from the Jewish theater routes, probably would have done an excellent job. I think Rod Steiger you could have used, and that would have been interesting. The other names, I don't know who Herschel Bernardi is. Do you?
No, I don't. I mean, some of these may be Broadway people.
Danny Thomas, very good comic actor. Richard Burton, very classic. I don't know if that would have fit because he's.
I mean, again, a lot of these people, can they sing? That's the big thing here, is that Topol had done this on stage and he could belt out these songs.
Yeah, the last two, Frank Sinatra, I think would have been too Frank Sinatra. But I would really have loved to have seen some version of this last name, Walter Matthau as Topol.
Speaking of Hello Dolly, Walter Matthau singing in Hello Dolly is just the worst. Like, that movie is fun overall, but every time Matthau opens his mouth to sing, it's like, this is not in your skill set, buddy. I'm sorry.
Putsch.
Right. Hey, that's a Jewish term, right? A Yiddish term.
I think he would have, he would have killed the comedy part of it anyway. But the point is, like, we named all these great actors. It would have been interesting. But Topol, who will forever be enshrined as Tevye, deserves that. He really, really did something incredible here. And like you said, you never once think that this is a 36-year-old man.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to say really quick, you guys were saying earlier about whether or not Yenta originated here. That would be amazing if there was a role that originated the term putz. That would be like the best role ever.
I mean, sometimes you're like the paparazzo thing, I feel like still like surprised me, and it still surprises people now. And I feel like there's other things like that.
Yeah, totally.
Where maybe it's not in a movie, but it's in a book or something. And you realize, there's like a character named this that has become this generic term for something.
We see that, so it could be
time,
right. Like right. when you're bowling and you're doing terribly, you're Munsoning it. That's a well-known term, right?
I've not heard that.
It's from Kingpin.
Kingpin. No, I haven't seen Kingpin.
Speaking of terms, I'm as Jewish as fucking Tevye. Big Lebowski, Walter Sobchak. So.
Yes. Oh, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, Walter having converted. You know who would be a good Tevye?
John Goodman.
John
Yeah,
Goodman.
of course.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
I think he could do it. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it would be interesting if they would, and I don't see any reason to, but if they remade it now, right? Would it be a big screen thing? Probably not. I don't know, but you could maybe do like a whole sing-along version of it. But it would be interesting who they would cast now. And if they would update any of the roles for females, like, you know, we talk about the song Tradition and like the mom, you know, when they get to the mom's part, it's my job to clean the house and make my husband dinner is basically like the stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, part of that is like, that's what is expected of her. And we do get the scene, right, where they're talking about and then singing about, you know, he says, "Do you love me?"
That's
right?
a great scene,
that was a big, that's a great scene, right? Because you get to the idea that like, they're just, their marriage, regardless of what the daughters are doing, their marriage has always proceeded by exactly what that traditional idea was. It was an arranged marriage. Whether they loved each other or even liked each other wasn't relevant. And they just did their duties. They, you know, played their roles and they raised their children, and they didn't really talk about this, but you get the sense there they finally do. And you're like, yeah, they do love each other in their way, and they've stuck by each other. And that means something.
I agree. And also, I don't want to make light of that kind of, you know, we have to take into what society was, right? They're poor, right? They're at most working class. It's 5 kids in the house, right? He's out there, like his job is to go and sell the milk and the cheese. And, you know, at this time, her job was to make sure that the kids were raised and the house was upkept. So that's just how it was then.
Right, exactly. And I think they're being honest about the way things were while also allowing us to sort of look to the future. I mean, that's really what the story is. It's about how things change, whether that's the way people, you know, fall in love and get married, or political changes beyond your control that force you out of your homeland.
Yeah, so going on that, there's this constable character who he and Tevye get along, and the guy likes Tevye, and you know, even though you're a Jew type thing, I really like you. And he warns them like, hey, you know, we got to make a little showing to show that we're, the law and order around here. And of course they break up the wedding. And I think that's probably the most devastating scene, but it is interesting because he's reluctant, but never is not going to do what he perceives as his duty, which is to go and just destroy the Jewish section of this community and force them to leave within 3 days. So.
Right. I mean, and I feel like this is a common characterization of a lot of like Nazi characters in movies about World War II that you see, where they're like, we're just following orders and I like you, but I have to send you to a concentration camp. Sorry,
nothing
buddy.
that we don't see today. Yeah, I'm not racist, but I support all these racist policies. Oh, ICE breaking up families. I'm not racist. I didn't break up any families. I got nothing to say about them. Whatever.
When will we get to the point where we can have the Ice musical
with Vanilla Ice and Ice and Ice Spice? So.
I hope all of them, Ice Tea, Ice Cube, all of them. Yeah. Let's get them all in there.
Yeah.
So one thing I did want to point out that I particularly liked is the sequence of Tevye's fake dream, where he comes up with this elaborate lie about a dream so that he can convince Golda that Seitzel, the daughter, should not marry Laserwolf, but should be allowed to marry the tailor. And it was so like proto Tim Burton-y with all the ghosts and like the washed out color palette, and they're dancing around in the cemetery. And I thought that scene was really fun.
This is exactly the thing I was going to bring up before we wrapped up, because it felt so much like what Tim Burton has basically been doing his whole career, is probably going back to this. It's an awesome sequence. I loved it so much.
The only thing I wish is that he would have called one of those ghosts a Dybbuk. You know what a Dybbuk is?
Right. Yeah. I've seen multiple horror movies about Dybbuks.
Yeah. Explain what a Dybbuk is, Josh. So.
I don't know. It's a Jew ghost, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Josh was on an episode of Piecing It Together on a Dybbuk movie before.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was a good one. Yeah. What was that? The Vigil.
Yeah.
So it's a not nice ghost. It's not like a friendly ghost, right?
And right. It's like a Jewish demon. Right. It's in a box. Is it usually in a box?
It's an area of your home, and you know, like other ghosts, you need to perform rituals to get it out of your house.
Yeah, I saw some that movie, The Vigil, was good. I saw some terrible one. I can't remember what it was called, where this unsuspecting family buys a Dybbuk in a box at
Well,
a garage
I think they
sale.
mentioned
Nice.
the Dybbuk in A Simple Man, the Coen Brothers movie. And
Yeah.
what was that show?
A Serious Man.
Serious Man.
Yeah.
What was that show Billy Eichner was on that was very funny on Hulu with that lady?
Difficult People?
Yeah, there's a whole episode of them trying to get rid of a Dybbuk, which I found amusing. So
Nice.
yeah.
Maybe if they remade this now, would Billy Eichner play Tevye?
I think Billy Eichner would probably play one of the one of the suitors, or maybe
Laser Wolf. He could play Laser
Wolf. Or maybe you update it and now one of the kids is gay. It's a boy and he's
well,
gay.
not in 19th century Russia. That's not going to work. Yeah, you have to update it the time.
Not in 19th century Russia, but in today's Russia, where members of Pussy Riot go to jail for 15 years. It's all better.
Yeah, you couldn't. You'd have to set it in like Brooklyn or something to make all that stuff work. But you could maybe.
That'd be great if he was on it and he was just running up to Tevye, like as Tevye's like on the road, and he's just asking him really loud, obnoxious questions, like,
Tevye, name a Jew.
Yeah. No, next. So yeah.
Dave, as a person with the rap persona, Jewish Dave, do you have any other thoughts you want to share on this?
Yeah, no, I think we got into all of it. I mean, it's just great song after great song. And I was just going to bring up that dream sequence because it's so much fun. But yeah, this is a really fun movie. And it just, the crowd pleaser of the year, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Not the French Connection?
Yeah, sure.
Well, that was very popular.
I love that movie. He said crowd pleaser. That's why. Josh.
Right. Yeah, no, that's the thing is, I mean, this is a downer too, but they soften, as you can see if you read about the original stories, they soften the ending a great deal.
Should we rate it out of 5 yentas, Josh?
Let's do it.
Gets 3.5 yentas for me. This was a good discovery because I've known about this movie forever. I've never watched it. I've seen the show, would be happy to see it again, was delighted to watch it with my kiddo. And really, just as Dave, you just said, a crowd pleaser. I really like this movie. And it has one of the great performances of the 70s or of film musical history. So 3.5 yentas for this guy.
I will give it 3 yentas. I will say I appreciated it more than I enjoyed it. It was a bit of an endurance test at times, but I can respect, just like I said about watching like Oklahoma or something, these big like behemoth classic musicals are a bit much for me, but I appreciate the effort. So 3 yentas from me. Dave, how do you rate this?
4 yentas from me.
All right. Dave, I'm sure you have at least that many yentas in your life.
You know it. You know it.
We'll come back and talk about the legacy of Fiddler on the Roof. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about box office champion Fiddler on the Roof. And one of the legacies, Jason, I don't know if you were alluding to this or not, but it was actually re-released in theaters in 1979 with 32 minutes cut out of it. I'm not sure which 32 minutes, but they must have determined that there was some audience maybe that would go see it in the theater that hadn't bothered or wouldn't see it before when it was
What
longer.
if it was the last 32 minutes and they got rid of all the sad stuff and it's just like, hey, these Jews are doing fine in this village. So
you know what I saw? I think it was someone on Letterboxd who said that like when they were a kid, they would watch the movie maybe up to the intermission or something like that, or up to the wedding scene and then just stop because they didn't want to see the sad parts.
Yeah. Well, sorry, got bad news for you. Don't research any Jewish history then. So
right. But I'm sure that was not what
I don't know. You could take little things here and there, but again, if you're re-releasing this, I mean, today I would just be like, it's re-release. We're going to put the words on the bottom of the screen, sing along with it, have a great time.
Right. And I mean, this is, so many, just like I mentioned that like marathon that I went to one time, a lot of these classic musicals are big for theatrical re-releases. And we just had a big re-release of The Sound of Music. And I mean, I'm sure this is one that has gotten that as well. And, the play is constantly revived. Basically has been revived on a regular basis since it premiered in 1964. It most recently had an 8-year run on Broadway from 2015 to 2023. It had a West End run in 2019. There are 500 amateur productions of this a year. And as I said, Topol basically made a career out of playing Tevye. He starred in the 1983 1990 and 1994 revivals of the play on both Broadway and the West End. And he played Tevye more than 3,500 times in his career.
Ranging from 1967 through 2009, 42 years playing that part. American movies he made include Flash Gordon and For Your Eyes Only, the James Bond one. He did win a Golden Globe in 1964 for Best Newcomer for the Israeli film, The Salah Shabati. Tell us about that movie, Josh.
I don't know anything about that one. And I may or may not have seen For Your Eyes Only. I always get, as we probably said when we did You Only Live Twice in our James Bond episode, like I tend to blur all the James Bond movies together. And I don't even know, is that a Roger Moore one, I think maybe? I don't know. I may have seen it, but I don't recall.
Josh, we've talked about Norman Jewison. This is now the third time we've talked about him, one of the most well-known and decorated filmmakers of all time. But what I want to point out here, Josh, is look at the three movies that we've covered from him, right? In the Heat of the Night, Racial Small Southern Town, Fiddler on the Roof, 1900, Jewish Shtetl, and then Moonstruck, New York, Italian, blue-collar subculture. Like, this guy could pretty much do anything. Like, I mean, he could capture all these cultures in a real honest way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's maybe best known for these sort of social issue films like In the Heat of the Night, although this movie, obviously, as we've been saying, does take on some serious social issues related to Jewish history. But his career is hugely varied. He did follow up Fiddler immediately with another like Broadway adaptation musical, doing a film version of Jesus Christ Superstar, which I don't know if that was as successful, and I've never seen that. I don't know if you've seen that one, Jason.
Again, parts of it, but what I would think about with him in the 70s, 1975 Rollerball, which is becoming, again, a little too prescient for what's going on in the world today.
Yeah. But I mean, even if you look at, these two musicals that he did back to back, like the quintessential Jewish musical and then the quintessential Jesus musical.
I know, that's
that's
great that he could do all that.
Yeah.
I think the last big thing that we probably saw him do was The Hurricane, again, social issues, Denzel playing the boxer. And he was great in that movie, Reuben Carter, who was wrongly accused and imprisoned for murder.
Yeah, he made one movie after that in 2003 and then retired. He had passed away in 2024. But an amazing varied career. It was interesting to me looking at the other actors in this film, almost none of whom I'd ever heard of. And the vast majority of them, you look at their Wikipedia page and it says mainly known for Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, all the actors who played the daughters, Rosalind Harris, Michele Marsh, Neva Small, had sort of minor careers, often on stage or in TV roles. Rosalind Harris this is amazing, talking about Topol's sort of longevity as Tevye. Later, she, who plays Seitzel, the daughter, played Golda, the wife, in a stage revival of Fiddler on the Roof opposite Topol as Tevye.
I know, that's so cool. I think that's great. You mentioned Leonard Frey, who was up for the Supporting Actor Award. He was in movies in the 80s, including Up the Academy and Where the Buffalo Roam. And then, Paul Michael Glaser had a great career. He was Starsky in Starsky and Hutch. He directed a ton of TV, directed The Running Man, The Cutting Edge. So, a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he was the only one really whose name I recognized as I was looking through those credits. And, I definitely, the Running Man, the original, was a favorite of mine as a kid. He also directed Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal.
But not Shazam, starring Sinbad, because we don't live in that universe.
Because that's not real.
Josh, the rabbi, played by Z.E. Schooler, this was pretty cool. He was known as the Grammeister, the master of rhyme. And on the Yiddish radio station WEVD in New York, every Sunday from the 1930s until his death, he presented a 10-minute segment called Forward Hour, which was news and commentary all done in rhyme.
He's like a Yiddish rapper.
Like Two Live Jew. Or
right,
Modest,
yeah.
or Modest
Dave, I feel like this guy should be a serious influence on your music.
Yeah, I was waiting for Jason to list me on that list that he was just listening to.
Nope, it's just Two Live Jew, Modest Yahoo, and the Beastie Boys.
Yeah. I mean, similar to that, Molly Picon, who plays Yenta, I mean, she had been a legend in Yiddish theater going back to the 1920s. She was in silent film and mainly on stage there in New York City, but also did show up in the Cannonball Run movies after this. I mean, she's in the National Museum of American Jewish History. There's an off-Broadway play about her life. So, I mean, she had a whole amazing career for like 50 years before even getting to this film.
That's pretty cool. The only other one I would mention, Josh, is that we haven't talked about is that John Williams helped the music out on this thing.
And John Williams was the one who won the Oscar, weirdly, for this film. Of course, the original music from the stage play would not have been eligible, but that score adaptation category, which again doesn't exist, where I assume it's like, taking existing music and adding to it or whatever. John Williams did that, arranged that music and maybe added some new stuff to fill out the musical score as a film. So he was the one who won the Oscar for this, not necessarily one of the movies mainly associated with John Williams, but of course an amazing composer across years and decades of film history.
Yeah, he's the Topol of film composing.
Yeah, why not? So that is Fiddler on the Roof. And that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can check us out online and on social media.
We're at awesomemovieyear.com on Instagram and Facebook. Who knows how long we'll last on that one. I'm Jason Harris Comedy on all the things, or Jay Harris Comedy. Come out to a trivia night. Maybe we'll have a question on Fiddler on the Roof, but we play it every week, so it's a tradition.
I appreciate you getting the last little song in there.
Go for Jason at Letterboxd. There you go.
You can find some old stuff from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I am at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd. And if you're on Letterboxd and you watch this movie or any of the movies we talk about on the show, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We would love to know what you think. And check out our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Josh, it's our first feature, which is actually going to be 2 episodes because there are so many, well, at least 2 major directors that we want to cover for a first feature. So our first feature episode is going to be on George Lucas THX 1138.
So tune in next time for THX 1138, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.